So, episode 3 of Amazon Prime's The Rings of Power aired last week, and I gotta be honest with you guys, it's kind of starting to lose me. It's starting to go in a bad direction, but maybe it can still be saved. I don't know. Like I said, barely episode 3, but let's break it down. Welcome to the newest episode of SDW.
Super Dario World!
Alright, so I figured out a way to watch this show that maybe is not as upsetting. So don't think of it as an adaptation. Think of it more as an inspired by. You know the difference between they're not straight up adapting the Silmarillion. They're not adapting Lord of the Rings. They're inspired by it. So they're free to take a lot more liberties with it, which now makes it insane that they paid so much money for it. I mean, they could have just made their own show. Just change. Honestly, if they would have just changed the name of the characters, it would be a completely different show. It had nothing to do with Lord of the Rings, and they would have saved themselves a buttload of money with the rights, buying the rights to Lord of the Rings. But I mean, they already paid for it. It's weird. They paid for it. Why not use it? But whatever. And for those of you who don't know the difference between inspired by and adaptation, usually you tend like the Lord of the Rings movies are adaptations because you're trying to adapt the book. Inspired by, it would be like a bunch of movies are inspired by, like for example, I don't know, like Silence of the Lambs is inspired by a serial killer. It's not exactly how it happened. In fact, most of it's not how it happened, but there was a serial killer who did that, and so they got inspired by that to write another book. So it's kind of like that I think that would be the easiest way to, there's a bunch of horror movies that are inspired by X that have really nothing to do with it. Like some of them are closer to it, but usually they're not really that close. They can take a ton of liberties. Like Star Wars was inspired by a Japanese movie. I forget the name right now, something Mountain, but it was inspired by a Japanese samurai movie. So that's it might give you an idea of what the amount of liberties you can take with an inspired by. So again, it helps me out. I'll be honest. It makes me a little bit less mad, but still really mad. But trying to look at it as an inspired by and not an adaptation helps a little, just a little bit, not too much, not enough, but a little bit. Anyway, like I said, this episode kind of started going off the rails, and I did not see it coming. I did not expect that this would be the thing that upset me the most, but I guess I can go into it really quickly. So let's go into breaking down the episode. So let me just switch it up here. Cool. So the episode begins. I'll just go through it super quick. The episode begins here. We see the black elf. What's his name? I forget. I'm terrible with names. Let me see. Elves. Arondir. We see Arondir basically being moved around in a tunnel. Not a tunnel. A hole. A trench with goblins in it, and they have a bunch of slaves digging out that trench. Now, this doesn't make any sense because they're trying to make it like this is an underground tunnel system, but we clearly see that they're outside. Why they didn't make it a tunnel, I don't know, or why they're pretending like this is actually, I don't know, but this was really stupid because we've seen them move, and the way that they moved was really deep underground. So this was just stupid. I'm guessing they had it like this because they wanted to build a set, and it's open, and it's a lot harder to show all this stuff and do what they wanted to do inside a cave. But you have $1 billion for this show. You could have done it, so fuck you. Anyway, so it turns out that the rest of his elf buddies got captured too. Now, how elves got captured by orcs and goblins moving a trench, I have no idea. Seems really stupid, but they did. They definitely got captured. So again, it goes into the stupidity of this whole thing. How do you not notice this? Do you see their towers? They have some pretty nice towers. They're pretty high. You know what's pretty easy to see? Well, it's really hard to see stuff underground, but if somebody's digging a trench, it's pretty obvious. I don't see how you can be surprised, sneak attacked by a trench. Anyway, again, that whole storyline is stupid, but at least they showed that orcs and goblins don't really like being in the sun. So That's been established. Next, we see Galadriel and Hather. I'll just check his name. What's his name? Halbard. We see Halbard and Galadriel in the boat, and Galadriel clearly doesn't trust humans, like, oh, they're trying to poison me or whatever, and Halbard's kind of messing with her, and we figure out we meet a captain, and we basically figured out that she's been rescued by Númenóreans, and they go to Númenor. Now, I don't know how much of a spoiler this could be, and I don't really want to do any spoilers, but basically, Kingdom of Númenor is supposed to be the grandest and greatest kingdom in human history. Well, up to that point, or at least in the Second Age. And it's pretty much the thing that upset me the most about this show. And I'll get into it in a minute. The Second Age is supposed to be a tragedy. In many ways, it's Númenor is supposed to be humanity's greatest success and darkest failure. So it's highest high, it's lowest low, and it's supposed to be a majestic, like a majestically epic tragedy, and it sucks, but it's kind of one of those things that it makes sense in the grand scheme of things. I don't want to get into it, but essentially the story of the Second Age is a tragedy overall, but it takes time to show, and it takes quite a long while for that corruption to really set in, for the rot to set in and all that stuff. So again, I'm not particularly liking what I'm seeing here, because here the Kingdom of Númenor should be relatively young. Like, it started at the beginning of the Second Age, and we're 500 years in the Second Age, which I guess it's considerably a long time for humans. It's at least over back then, like maybe 10 generations or more. Well, except for Númenóreans, they tend to live for a few hundred years. If you guys remember, all right, Aragorn was a descendant of the Dunedain, and the Dunedain are descendant of Númenóreans, and they were blessed with long lives, so they can live for a few hundred years. It's like the gift they got from the gods for fighting on the side of the Valar and the elves and stuff like that. It was one of the gifts that they got. So again, supposed to be one of the highest highs, and then you get the third. Then after the tragedy of the Second Age, you get the Third Age, which is technically a fallen age. So one thing builds up to the other, and here I feel like they massively messed up what's supposed to happen. Anyway, so they're having Númenor. Númenor actually looks pretty cool. Like, you see like pieces, let's say the shadows of Gondor, like the things that inspired Gondor in the future, their architecture and stuff, the massive statues, all that stuff. And so everybody's looking at Galadriel, and they're not particularly happy to see an elf around, whatever. And Halbard, I guess he looks like a hobo. And so they get taken to meet the queen regent of Númenor, right? So apparently elves have not been on their shores for a very long time, and here we get to see how Galadriel is pretty much the worst politician in the history of Middle-earth. Like, terrible, disgustingly bad. Like, she's not asking for much, but she's being a total bitch about it. And again, this pisses me off, because this does not seem how Galadriel will be. And again, because Galadriel, pretty shrewd politician, extremely charming. This is not a hostile situation where she's insulting basically the queen and in her own castle. Does not seem like something that Galadriel would do. So I think we're going into one of the biggest mistakes of the show, where they should have just made a new female character. Like, they should have just created a character for the show, and that character could have been her. Like, there's a massive mistake in making this girl Galadriel, because she's nothing like Galadriel. Galadriel at this point, again, she is probably the second oldest elf. She's extremely accomplished. She's probably, at this point, she probably has, she's married with kids. So again, supposed to be the most beautiful of all the elves, charming, beyond powerful, old, wise, shrewd politician. And so the way that they're showing her is kind of like a dumbass, a particularly stupid politician, and definitely charmless shrew. So definitely bad idea. I'm not liking this storyline. Anyway, somehow they Halbert convinces the queen that, hey, give us 3 days, just 3 days, so you can figure out what you want to do with us, because Galadriel is about to get them killed. Because again, she did like she rolled a hard one in diplomacy. So again, all the charm. Harbald is all the ground. I just said his name. Halbrand. That's his name. Halbrand. Whatever. Honestly, I may give up on this show because it's really starting to lose me. Whatever. So we get to see Numenor. We get to meet a few characters. Blah blah blah. Halbrand. We get to see that he's kind of like a skilled thief because he steals the knife back. And here we meet the complication, the problem, the issue. Elendil. So this is Captain Elendil. And so for those of you who don't, you know what, I'll save this a little bit. But the point is, we meet Elendil, who looks like he's going to be like one of the new characters. And here we learn that Elendil has a son. And the son's name is Isildur. So, for those of you who don't remember, and I don't know, I guess most of you probably know this and you probably remember, but in case, just for those of you who don't remember, and there's a very important part in the opening sequence of The Lord of the Rings. It's very important, you know, it's the war, the final lines of men and elves, where they go to Mount Doom and they fight. And so we get to see Sauron comes out and he comes with this big mace and he's just, you know, wrecking fools left and right. And then he wrecks, he just hits straight up, almost kills the king of the humans, right? And so this is where Galadriel says, "It was in this moment, when all hope had faded, that Isildur, son of the king, took up his father's sword." I'm going to say that again, all right? Slowly. That Isildur, son of the king, took up his father's sword. All right. So there's a lot of very important things that happen here, and this is the reason why I'm very upset. Okay. The Second Age is supposed to be about 3,500 years long. 3,500 years. It ends with the defeat of Sauron by, you know, when Isildur cuts off, you know, the One Ring from his hand. Which means that that happens at about year, let's say 3,470 something. Like, it's not exactly 3,500, but it's at the very end. That's how it ends. So Isildur was there. Now Isildur gets to live for a few hundred years, but still, let's say he's born in the year 3,300, 3,200. Here we know exactly what part of the what part of the Second Age we are. We are about in the year 500, because they've mentioned, and I believe in the first or second episode, that Galadriel has been chasing after Sauron. Like, after the defeat of Morgoth, she's been chasing after Sauron for 500 years. So we're in the year 500. Now let's say that, you know, maybe a few things had happened, maybe a few more. So let's say in the year 1000, you know, just to be generous, the year 1000. That's still 2,000 years too early for this guy to be alive. Okay? Way too early. Crazy early. Insane. So there's 2,000 years of very important history that we're not going to get to see. Because again, Isildur is supposed to show up at the end. Now, son of the king means that his dad is not a captain. He's supposed to be the king. Now, I'm sure they're going to find a way to make him be the king. I have no idea how they're going to manage the whole succession thing. It seemed really weird. I don't like it at all. Usually, you know, I'm going to save all that stuff because it could be spoilers in one way or not. The point is, we know that Elendil is the king at the end of the Second Age. We know that Isildur, who is his son, is the one who takes down Sauron. I just don't know why the fuck they're here. It's almost like they're just trying to, oh, this character is known, so we're just gonna add him. We're just gonna add him. Does it make sense that he's there? No. Are we taking 3,500 years of history and just shrinking them into like a few years? Yeah, like, again, this is a very slow rot. It's a very slow corruption. Again, it's the highest high and the lowest low, and we need to see it happen. It needs to be. We need to see both ends of it, and so far we really haven't seen either of them. And you're skipping all the way to the end. So what the fuck are you doing? What is the point of all this? I don't get it. I don't understand it. Like, if this were me, the way that I would have handled this, if I want to have Isildur and Elendil in the first season, I probably would have done it kind of the way that they do it in the first season of The Witcher, but except I would have explained the timeline better. So in the first season of The Witcher, if you guys remember, there's 3 timelines. So the witch is all the sorceress. I forget her name because I hate her. She's like a few hundred years behind, and then Geralt is a few years behind, like maybe a dozen years, a little bit more. And then the girl is the main girl. I'm blanking out with names right now. It's probably late. And so the main girl, she's like right there in I want to say Evie, but I know that name's wrong, and I'm gonna remember eventually. Don't worry. And so she starts right, like that's current time, and eventually the timelines catch up, and it's fun to watch. So if they could have done this, they could have done this with the Galadriel, or the equivalent of a Galadriel girl, that she's doing all the things all the way back in the Hunt for Sauron and all that stuff like that. And then something in the middle with maybe the dwarves and Elrond, and then kind of current time with Isildur and Elendil. That they could have done that, and it would have been fun to see, like, for example, I don't know, like Isildur and Elendil talking about, like, oh yeah, when the elf Galadriel came to the island and problems started kind of springing out like that. And then in a different episode, we see Galadriel be there, and the situation was not exactly the way that it was shown. So it could have been fun. There was, again, you could see how history has been morphed and changed and stuff like that. It could have been fun to watch. The way they're doing this is stupid, because again, they're just cutting out 3,000 years of history for no reason. I don't get it. And there's a lot of very interesting, fun stuff that they could have done in the middle that they're just not. In fact, instead they're putting, they have orcs digging a tunnel. So, all right. Anyway, so we get to see Isildur here wants to become a captain or whatever, or a sailor. Anyway, we also learned that he has a sister who's a nerd, basically. At least that's the way they described her. We see the white tree of Numenor, and the queen basically ripping into Elendil for bringing an elf to Numenor after supposedly they weren't allowed to come there. Because again, it's like 500 years of history, and for no reason, we just learned. Here's the problem for the viewer. You don't know what Numenor is. They haven't really explained it. They kind of just showed up there and they told us, oh yeah, they hate him. Now, I know what Numenor is. I know it's history and all that stuff. But again, I read the books. I'm really into this stuff. I played the video games. I played a whole bunch of stuff. A normie would not know this. You'd probably just be confused, like, who the fuck are those guys? Why are they there? Why do they hate each other? What's the issue? It'd be fun to see, the conflict brew up. Like, why are the elves and the Numenorians mad at each other? Maybe it'd be fun to see, like the small things that start becoming bigger and bigger. I don't know. Again, you have $1 billion. You're overpaying your writers because your writers are stupid. You could have afforded. You had the money to get the best writers in the world, and you got people who suck completely. Terrible. Waste of money. Anyway, so basically, she promotes Elendil, but now he's basically responsible for the chick, or for Galadriel. Then in the Southlands, again, the storyline, and you know what's funny? It's one of those things where you're like, okay, I know it's very controversial, them casting like the Black Elf and stuff like that, but it's one of those things that I'm like, man, they just couldn't resist themselves. Like the first main character that they put on chains has to be the black guy, huh? Wow. It's almost like they did it on purpose. Like they cast the black guy so that he would be in the interracial relationship with a human, the elf human relationship, and also to put him in chains. Like, how racist is that? that's really fucked up stuff. Like, he could have been maybe any other character, but they picked that one specifically to go through all that stuff. Ah, God, it's all right. Listen, it's a decision, okay? I don't know if it's good. I don't know if it's bad. I just know that it's a stupid storyline. I in general don't like the prison stuff unless it's a prison high school. That was epic. But I hate when they're just stuck in one place and nothing's really progressing and nothing really changes. Whatever. Apparently the elves come up with a plan because they just need to just get one of them out so they can call for help. Let everybody know. So basically here, We see the orcs being dicks, but we already knew that orcs were dicks, so whatever, it doesn't matter. All this doesn't matter. None of this matters really. They chopped down a tree for some reason. Oh yeah, because he wanted to go up and listen. I don't understand this whole storyline. It's dumb. Basically, they didn't want to chop down a tree. And you see this again, this trench here. You can't really sneak up on people that way. At least I don't think you'd be able to comfortably. Like, I get it. I understand a tunnel. Tunnel makes sense, especially for orcs and goblins. Like, goblins they live in caves. It makes perfect sense for goblins to be able to dig and be good at it. This is just stupid. It's just stupid. Like, why is it all the way on top? I don't. You know, let's just say I don't like the storyline. I think it's stupid. Whatever. Next, Galadriel, as she's trying to escape, she ends up being found by Elendil, and basically Elendil is like, "Hey, let's go for a ride. I'll show you stuff, because I know people who are still, you know, friends of elves here. Not everybody hates elves." And then we get to see like a very unnecessary slow motion shot of her riding a horse and then smiling. And let me tell you, this girl looks weird smiling. She's one of the weirdest smilers I've ever seen in my life. I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm just saying it's something. Let me see if I get the close up here. Like this shot is totally unnecessary. Just come on, just show her face. Damn it. Come on. Like, it's right there. Why won't you do it? Come on. Whatever. Doesn't matter. So yeah. No, there you go. It's you know how some people smile and then some people just show you their teeth? Like this is what people do, right? They show teeth to show they're happy. And it looks weird and uncomfortable. She's one of those people. It looks weird and uncomfortable. Like, very... Imagine she just shows up like in your apartment in the middle of the night. You'd be like, ah! Anyway, here, then we see whatever his name is, Halbath, trying to get a job as a smith, and it turns out he has to be part of the guild in order to be a smith. Now, this is bizarre. Like, usually smiths have apprentices, and then that's how you maybe do the test to get in the guild. I don't know. Just seems stupid. Also, okay, I guess this guy is a sailor and a smith. All right. And like has very fast hands, whatever. The point is, clearly he's kind of trying to make friends in a way, but he's actually trying to steal one of the guild medallions, and he gets caught, and so they want to kick his ass, but it turns out that actually he knows how to defend himself. So exactly like the Blackwood kid in House of the Dragon, fuck around and find out, you know. So he ends up kicking all their asses, but he's the one that gets arrested for it. Why? Because he's not a Numenorian, I guess. Anyway, so Galadriel's there. She's going through the library or whatever this place is, and she finds out that it was actually built by the brother of Elrond. And she's like, "Hey, I know this guy, but I actually get along better with his brother." Blah blah. Doesn't matter. They find this parchment where a spy finds that. You guys remember how she saw a symbol in the very first episode that it was a symbol left by Sauron, and so they find one. It turns out that a human spy made that exact same symbol, and it's not a symbol. It's actually a map. It's like a map of Mordor, basically, right? And it shows you Mordor, and so she's like, "Oh my god, I was a fool. It wasn't a symbol. It was to the side. So I need to go to Mordor because that's where Sauron is." Again, she was looking north, and it turns out that this thing's south. But whatever. She's never been particularly clever in this show. Anyway, so she decides to go there, and she also finds something else. I don't even know what she finds. By the way, it's very interesting that the map that's here is exactly the map, like on this table is exactly the map of the area that she needs to see. Quite curious. Anyway. Like, why the hell would Numenor have this particular area? It doesn't matter. Honestly, it doesn't matter. Because again, this shows, like I said, it's testing me. It's testing my patience. Like, you can tell I'm not as passionate about it. I'm actually kind of like down on it. Then we see the Harfoots doing weird stuff in the festival. They're getting ready to move or whatever. The what's her name? Nori's family is like, oh, we're not gonna be able to move. Your leg's broken, and he's like, nah, we'll be fine. Because apparently the Harfoots are like cold-blooded, and if you fall behind, you get left behind, which is metal as fuck. But okay, kind of rough. Kind of, you'd think they'd, like friendship and stuff, but no. If you fall behind, you get left behind. That's the Harfoot way. Anyway, Nori wants to check out some stars in the book of the oldest dude because she thinks there's going to be information there, because if you guys remember, the weird dude that fell from the sky made a drawing, well, used fireflies to signal a few stars, and so she's like, all right, I'm going to check them out. Now why are they checking out those stars? Who the fuck knows? Doesn't matter. So she finds the thing. You get this whole comedy bit of Bill Cosby being there and making it difficult for her to get the stuff. Then she leaves with it. She doesn't read it. She goes to the reading of all the people that they left behind because they're metal as fuck. And not only do they just dump people and forget them, they remember when they forget them, and they're like, hey, remember that dumbass that we left behind? This guy, you remember this dumbass that we left behind? Anyway, so while that was happening, the dude that fell from the sky showed up. Like, I want to call him Gandalf, but I don't know if it's Gandalf yet, so I'm gonna say the giant dude that fell from the sky shows up and basically sets the map thing on fire and causes drama. And after all that drama, scares the Harfoots, and he's like, Nori, where are you, Nori? And so everybody's like, the fuck you do, Nori? And so basically their punishment is that they get sent all the way to the back of the caravan, which is a terrible place to be if, like the dad, you have a broken leg. So there you go. All the way to the back. That's their punishment. Again, this storyline isn't, I mean, it looks like it's going to go somewhere, but it's not particularly interesting at this moment. Then we get to see the family dynamics of Isildur, Lendil, and the sister whose name I do not remember. Again, you don't see anything really political about how these are these people are even in the royal line. It's weird. But basically, Isildur is like, man, I don't want to go into the service. I might want to do something else for a few years, blah, blah, blah. And the dad's like, you got to go in the military, or you got to go in the Navy, or whatever. It's a dumb conversation. Honestly, I don't see it going anywhere other than to show that there's, issues between father and son. The sister gets accepted to the guild. Freaking Isildur leaves, and then we have Galadriel visiting Halbarth or whatever in jail. And in jail, she's like, hey, I found this symbol in a page in this giant library, and with a whole bunch of parchment, but it's the exact same symbol that you have on your stupid bag thingy. So I'm pretty sure that you're the king of the Southlands, which means would be like Mordor and stuff. So how about you help me? And I have to go there to kill Sauron, but you can go there and you unite everybody, and yay, and we win. And the dude's like, you're stupid, girl. And she's like, I don't care, do it, you little bitch, do it. And he's like, fine, I'll fucking go, but not because of you, not because I want to be king. I just, I don't want to be in prison anymore. So the episode basically ends with the queen. The queen regent goes visits the king. We haven't seen the king yet. The Harfoots, we see their journey's difficult, particularly for Nori's family. They're getting left behind, but the giant dude who fell from the sky shows up and he helps them with their cart. So they go on their merry way. In the meantime, what's this dude's name again? Arondir. That was close. Aaron. I'm gonna call him Aaron. So Aaron and his crew, they're trying to set up their escape plan. It's not going very well because it turns out that they're wearing chains, and there's a lot more orcs. Honestly, like in a game of tug of war, it makes no sense for like 10 elves to be holding their own against 20 orcs. Like, that just makes no sense. But whatever. Whatever. They try to break their chains. They release a warg, which wargs might have attacked them or anybody else, so it's a really weird thing for them to release. And also, this dumb bitch goes she goes after the warg with a spear and loses. Like, I don't know how you can fuck up. She has a spear, which is the perfect weapon to go up against, a wild animal, because it gives you range, and there's a big, pointy stick at the end. But there's a pointy end, but and all you have to do is just stick him with a pointy end, and but she fucks that up and she gets dead. So, well deserved. There's this fight. Some of the things are cool. Most of them are stupid. One of the dude managed to get away, but it turns out that, oh yeah, they've got archers, just patrolling the area. So running away is not an option. And so the elf dude apparently lost all his friends, and they're going to take him to see Adar. Adar is kind of like their leader. It may be Sauron, maybe not. We'll know. This is kind of the way he looks, all blurry. I'm going to guess that's not Sauron, and that's how the episode ends. So like I said, not particularly interesting, fun in any way. Didn't really like the first few ones. You felt like they were following at least the themes of the Lord of the Rings. Here, not so much. And they just completely just threw a grenade in the middle of the timeline of Lord of the Rings. So again, to me, this isn't an adaptation. This is an inspired by, and not a particularly good inspired by. Because again, they're just 3,000 years of history, just boop, throw it out the window. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know where their money went. It should not have gone to any person writing this. Not one. Not a single one deserves a penny. It's disgustingly bad, particularly this episode. The other two, I was kind of okay with. And now that I think about it, I was probably kind of okay with it because Elrond was in it. And Elrond Galadriel did follow the three main themes. But Elrond, at least, he was pushing the story forward. We were seeing interesting things. We were getting to see big names in key players of this particular timeline. The King of the Elves. We got to see Galadriel, which is probably her best scene in the show, is when she's speaking with Elrond. We got to see Celebrimbor. We got to see Durin. So that stuff was interesting. That felt, Lord of the Ring-ish. Here, we got to see a bunch of characters that we don't really care about doing stupid stuff, and a chick who's supposed to be Galadriel be the worst politician ever, the worst and most charmless politician ever. I don't get it. We went to see Numenor, that nobody knows what it is, what's supposed to do, the people there, what the hell's going on, why the hell's Isildur there, what the hell, where even is it? Nobody really knows. Like, I mean, if you're a normie, and then you get to see a dude digging a tunnel, really? Whole lot of nothing. Boring. So this is definitely the worst episode so far. And again, I'm close to just jumping ship on this one. Maybe they can turn it around. Like I said, I was hopeful with the first two. This one, they left a bad taste in my mouth, and I was bored. And you can even tell, like right now, I'm bored. I sound bored. I'm not excited. There's nothing fun to break down. There's nothing really enjoyable. I was just pissed. But we'll see how it goes. As always, comments, questions, or suggestions, you can find me at Super Dario World on YouTube and on Twitch, streaming live. I'm gonna put this out on Wednesday, so I'm actually gonna do a live later today, probably around 8-9 p.m. with my brother when we do the football thing. So if you want to join us there live, you can do that. As always, thank you for joining me, and I'll see you again next time.